All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jaden Connor, and I'm a graduate student assistant for Dr. Jeremy Woods here at CSUB. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about cost accounting and due diligence paperwork. We're going to get into what these words actually mean, how they relate to entrepreneurship, why we use them, and different questions that you can kind of ask when you're doing due diligence. So let's go ahead and get started with talking about cost accounting and what this means. It is technically a systematic set of procedures for recording measurements in regards to the cost of manufacturing goods and performing services in detail. So really, in entrepreneurship, it can be used as a method of linking your costs in detail with the revenues to help determine where cost reduction can actually take place. And then sustainable cost to revenue conversion specifically is a multi-step process where we are looking at both our direct and indirect costs that it takes to manufacture a good or produce a service, listing them all in complete detail and trying to tie them to each one of our revenue sources. So even if the connection is indirect, it helps us determine if a cost is really necessary. So for example, I run a tutoring business, and some of my costs would be my technology, my Wi-Fi, my Calendly and Zoom services, but all of those can directly relate. So when we're talking about direct versus indirect costs, I want to make a clear distinction for you guys. So direct costs can be traced directly to an object, right? This could be your materials, your labor, your manufacturing supplies, things that you just readily associate with the cost object itself. An indirect cost, that's something that relates to the product but cannot be traced specifically to it. So this would be things like your space rent, your utilities, your office expenses, and things like that. So now we'll go ahead and start talking about the process of due diligence and why it's important. So essentially, due diligence is a process of collecting and analyzing data before making important decisions. So in entrepreneurship, it is a way of acquiring data to prove the value of a product for your investors, your stakeholders, key business partners, banks, and people like that. And so some of the information that you really want to research for your product or service offering is going to be how it's different from everything else that's on the market. What is its price comparison? What is the brand profile, including a website? What is this social media footprint of another company? You also want to know about their customer base. Who are they tailoring their services to? How are they marketing their services to these people? You also want to take a look at some of their resources that they have, and these could be both human resources like their employees and their departments, their tangible resources, including their finances and assets, and then some of their intangible resources as well. Financials play a huge part in key due diligence information. This includes, a company's liquidity, their credit rating, and then also some of their key partners. And so when we are doing due diligence, there's questions that you want to ask of the founders, of the market. You want to talk about the financials. And so I'm going to go ahead and kind of break down some of these questions that you want to think about when you're doing due diligence. So obviously, when you start looking at a company, you want to know, who are they? Where did they come from? Why does this company exist? And so to do that, we look at the founders. We want to know about their backgrounds. What makes them qualified? What kind of expertise do they have? How well does everybody function as a team to create sort of a company culture? What resources do they have access to? Do they have the right attitude to create that happy and sustainable work environment as well? When you're actually analyzing the market, you want to know who the users are and who the end buyers are. They may not always be the same person, but also how many of them are there? Is this just a specific niche that you're marketing to, or more of a broad prospect of people? So you also want to take a look at who are the suppliers, and do they have direct relationships with some of your competitors? But then also, who is your competition? If you're entering a super crazy market where there's a lot of big companies, like, for example, retail, you could be competing against people like Amazon and Walmart, and that could create a barrier to entry for you, and you don't want to do that. But essentially, just analyzing all of these can help determine how well your product or service is going to do in a given market. Next, you want to look at how specifically your product or service is going to benefit this market. So, when creating something, you want it to solve a problem for the customer, something that they need. And you want to know why that problem is important towards being solved. So, when you're looking at this information, it can kind of help you analyze if your product is going to be superior to the competition, or if it's something that could be easily copied and done by many people with greater resources. So just making that distinction between what makes your product or service special and stand out. So last but not least, we want to take a look at the financials of the company. So if you have current revenues, that's great. That can help build to project some of the short-term and long-term revenues to determine how the company can grow in the future. So some of the things you want to look at would be the one-time startup costs. You know, is there a certain amount of inventory that you need to buy, or certain machines that you need to purchase one time to help get the company going? What are going to be the ongoing fixed and variable costs? You know, do you have a space rent? What is the pay going to be like to the employees? And taking all of this into account, you can help to determine your anticipated profit margins and see kind of how your product or service is going to be successful. And so with all this information in mind, you also need to keep exit strategy in your back pocket. Is it feasible? Is it realistic? Just in case anything were to happen. So taking all of these things into consideration creates the process of due diligence, which is absolutely crucial before starting a business venture. So I do just want to thank you for joining us today for our cost accounting and due diligence paperwork training. And this is part of our Sustainable Entrepreneurship and Innovation Workshop series. Hope to see you next time.